Mars, the red planet. For decades, it's been the focus of our curiosity and imagination. From science fiction novels to groundbreaking space exploration, the idea of life on Mars has captured the attention of humanity. But what if, instead of finding life on Mars, we accidentally destroyed it? Yes, you heard that right. There's a new theory that suggests the Viking missions, the very missions that were supposed to help us find life on Mars, may have actually wiped it out. Intrigued? Well, welcome back to the Daily Past, and stick around as we explore this fascinating theory and what it means for the future of our search for life on the red planet. Mars has always been an object of human fascination. For centuries, we've looked up at the night sky, wondering if we were truly alone in the universe. When the idea of life on Mars was first suggested, it wasn't based on solid evidence, but rather on our human imagination. Scientists speculated that Mars might have once harbored life, but it was all theoretical. That all began to change in the 1960s and 1970s when NASA started sending missions to Mars. The goal? To answer one of humanity's most profound questions. Does life exist on Mars? The Viking missions, launched in the mid-1970s, were the first to land on Mars, with the explicit goal of finding signs of life. Viking 1 and Viking 2 were designed to be the pioneers in this quest. But here's the thing. Even though Viking 1 and 2 were able to send back a wealth of data, none of it could definitively prove that life existed on Mars. In fact, the results were inconclusive at best. Yet, despite the lack of evidence, Mars remained a key player in the search for extraterrestrial life. And the scientific community has continued to explore it in the hopes of one day finding the answer. In 1976, Viking 1 and Viking 2 made history by becoming the first spacecraft to land on the Martian surface. These missions were designed to gather data on Mars's atmosphere, soil, and surface conditions. Their primary goal, however, was to search for signs of microbial life. The scientists behind these missions believed that if life existed or had ever existed on Mars, it would likely be microbial, given the planet's harsh conditions. Both Viking landers carried out several experiments designed to detect biological activity in Martian soil. One of the most notable was the labeled release experiment, which involved adding nutrients and water to soil samples from the Martian surface and watching for any signs of biological activity. If life existed, it was expected that the Martian microbes would metabolize the nutrients and produce some form of chemical reaction. When the results came in, they were confusing, to say the least. At first glance, the results seemed to show some promising signs, chemical reactions that could suggest life. However, after further analysis, most scientists concluded that the reactions were simply chemical processes unrelated to life. The conclusions were not favorable. Mars didn't seem to harbor life, at least not in any form we could recognize. The Viking missions were deemed a failure in terms of detecting life, and many scientists moved on to other theories about Mars history. Here's where things start to get really interesting. You see, while the Viking missions didn't find conclusive proof of life, they did something else. Something that could have been just as important. They introduced water into the Martian environment. And that, according to some scientists, could have changed everything. Now, why is that important? Well, Mars is incredibly dry. The planet's atmosphere is thin, and liquid water is scarce. Scientists believe that life, as we know it, requires liquid water to survive. So when the Viking missions landed on Mars and exposed the Martian soil to liquid water, they were essentially testing if life could exist under those conditions. However, there's an argument that introducing water may have inadvertently caused harm to any potential life forms that were there. Some researchers, like astrobiologist Dirk Schulze-Makuch, believe that Martian microbes may have existed in a completely different way from what we imagine. Instead of thriving in liquid water, these microbes could have adapted to Mars' hyper-arid environment, drawing moisture from the thin Martian atmosphere, not from liquid water. This hypothesis suggests that if there were any life on Mars, it would have been incredibly resilient, surviving in the extreme dryness of the planet. When the Viking landers introduced water, they might have disrupted this delicate balance, effectively destroying any life forms that had adapted to Mars' dry conditions. Think about it. What happens when you introduce water into a habitat where life has evolved to survive in near-zero moisture? It could be like suddenly flooding an environment that can't handle it. And that's exactly what Schulze-Makuch suggests happened on Mars. To help us understand this better, let's take a look at an example here on Earth. In 2015, a rainstorm hit the Atacama Desert in Chile, one of the driest places on Earth. Normally, life in the Atacama Desert is incredibly sparse, but there are microbes that have adapted to the extreme dryness. These microbes have evolved to draw moisture from the air and survive in conditions that most living things would find inhospitable. However, when the rain came, something unexpected happened. The influx of water caused a dramatic drop in the microbial population. The microbes, which had adapted to the extreme dryness, couldn't handle the sudden moisture, and many of them perished. This is a key analogy that Schulze-Makuch uses to support his theory. He suggests that the Viking missions might have done something similar to the Martian microbes. The water that the Viking landers introduced could have been too much for any life forms that were adapted to survive in Mars' hyper-arid conditions. It's like a sudden rainstorm hitting a desert, disrupting everything. What if we inadvertently killed the life that was already there? This brings us to an important question. If we were wrong about the potential for life on Mars, how should we be searching for it now? For decades, scientists have been obsessed with finding liquid water on Mars, thinking it's the key to life. And while water is essential for life as we know it, Schulze-Makuch's theory suggests that liquid water might not be the magic bullet for finding life on Mars. Instead of focusing solely on liquid water, Schulze-Makuch proposes that we should start looking for something else: hygroscopic salts. These salts are capable of absorbing moisture from the atmosphere, and they could provide the right conditions for microbial life to survive, even in the dry Martian environment. These salts could act as a kind of reservoir for water vapor, allowing life to survive in a way that's different from how we think of life on Earth. This shift in perspective could change the entire approach to searching for life on Mars. It could open up new avenues of exploration and might lead to the discovery of life in places we hadn't even considered before. As space agencies around the world continue to explore Mars, there's hope that we'll get closer to understanding whether life ever existed there. But the new theory also raises a lot of important questions about how we approach our future missions. With new technologies and more advanced instruments, scientists may be able to detect these hygroscopic salts, search for other clues that life might have existed, and approach Mars with a different set of questions. The next generation of missions to Mars, like NASA's Perseverance rover, is focused on collecting soil and rock samples to bring back to Earth. These samples will provide us with more data about Mars history and whether life, whether microbial or something else, has ever existed there. With this new understanding of how life might survive in such a dry environment, future missions will likely be better equipped to answer the question of life on Mars once and for all. So did we kill Mars? It's a possibility that the Viking missions, in their quest for answers, might have unknowingly disrupted any life that existed on Mars, or at least changed the environment in ways we didn't anticipate. The theory that Martian microbes could have been destroyed by the very thing we thought could help them water forces us to reconsider everything we know about life on other planets. It also challenges the approach we've been using for decades in our search for life. Maybe we've been looking at Mars all wrong. Maybe the answers aren't in liquid water after all. But the journey is far from over. With new missions and new insights, humanity is still chasing the ultimate question. Is there, or was there, life on Mars? And maybe, just maybe, we'll find the answer soon. So what do you think? Could we have actually destroyed potential life on Mars without even realizing it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because, seriously, this one's a game changer. And hey, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of the universe. You've been listening to The Daily Past. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep watching The Daily Past.